This holiday season, we are delighted to wish you and your family all the very best with our podcast sponsor and partner, Electrify America. What a year of milestones for Electrify America. On average, they've opened 4 charging stations per week since May 2018. They started construction on their 800th charging station this year, expanded across 46 states and Washington, D.C. They installed battery storage systems at over 150 DC charging stations. And earlier this year, Electrify America announced its Boost plan to double its current EV charging network, with plans to install 1,800 stations and 10,000 individual chargers by 2025. And if you're on the road this holiday season and need to charge your EV, well, the Electrify America mobile app offers electric vehicle drivers a streamlined charging experience, whether you tap to pay at the NFC reader or swipe to start at the station. So, download it now if you haven't already. Well, you can find out more about their network at electrifyamerica.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Inside EVs podcast for December the 24th, 2021. This is episode number 90. Merry Christmas. So, our topics today, we drive the Mercedes AMG Eqs 53, NIO ET5 debuts with tons of range, and the Bmw Ix and i4 get their EPA ranges. I'm Dominic Yoni, Inside EVs forum moderator and Inside EVs editor. Joining us today is the urbane Tom Malogny, Inside EVs editor and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We also have the meddlesome Mr. Martin Lee from the EV News Daily podcast, which of course is available on all your best podcast platforms. And of course, Kyle Connor joins us from the majestic halls of Out of Spec Studios. He also puts together bodacious videos, dude, for the Inside EVs YouTube channel. Okay, so before we get going, I'd like to ask that you please subscribe to the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up button and ring that bell icon for notifications. If you're watching us on Twitch, you can also ring that bell icon for notifications. All right, so with that out of the way, welcome everybody, and Merry. I know it's a little early in the day, but I feel like I'll be sipping on some eggnog or something, like little.
Well, it's not too early in the day here. I'm 5 hours ahead of you, so
That's right.
I'm into Christmas Eve party time right now.
Do you do eggnog?
No, we don't do eggnog. No,
Okay.
but I have managed to demolish a rather nice bottle of brandy recently.
Oh, awesome.
Other brands are available, of course. I quite like this one, but clearly, of course, responsibly when the kids are in bed. When my child and wife are in bed normally, because she's an early bedder.
Right.
So yeah, but I hope you guys are having a good holiday season as well.
Yeah. All right. I guess you're in Vermont right now, Tom?
Yeah, I'm up in beautiful area of Vermont. Really scenic here. We got some snow last night, and so it looks like a white Christmas up here.
And I see Kyle's in the majestic halls there of the Out of Spec
we
Studios.
move into our office, I think the first or second week of January if everything
Okay.
goes well. So we're just in disaster mode for the last year waiting for this office space. But
Right
haven't traveled, which is great. So I've been home for, I think, almost a full week, which is the first time I think all year that's ever happened.
Wow, that is a while. I mean, yeah, you were like crazy, like on the road all the time for a while there.
Yep.
So let's start off with what we've been driving this week. I think, Kyle, you're actually the only one with a new vehicle. But before we talk about the Mercedes-Benz AMG Eqs 53, I understand that you had some tow charging adventures this week. And not only that, but you tow charged with the BMW X5 plug-in hybrid. So first, maybe, I don't know, tell us a little bit about that car and how you put its towing to good use.
Wrong button. There we go. So, so I had the new X5. I think it's the exact same X5 that Tom had because it's the identical spec, and it had so many miles on it. BMW had kept it in the fleet just so we could get to it because we've been really wanting to review the X5 45e before it left, but because we've been traveling and we have a crazy, vehicle loan schedule across all of our channels, we just hadn't been able to line it up. Finally, we got it with like 12,000 miles on it, which is a ton for a media vehicle. I got to say, thing felt brand new, no issues with the drivetrain or battery. Still exceeded EPA rated range in our urban style test. Did about 32 miles, I think, 33 miles. Yeah, 33.6.
Okay, that's not bad for a big SUV.
Yeah, and it's rated at 30. So even with 12,000 miles of constant charging, discharging, all the stuff that everyone's doing with it, it still exceeded. I was pretty impressed, especially because plug-in batteries get cycled really hard. Interesting thing on this car is, so 21 kilowatt hour battery pack installed, or 24 kilowatt hour battery pack installed. Europe gets 21 kilowatt hour usable. We only get 17. Same battery.
What? That's
So
crazy. That's weird.
I'm not sure what the reasoning is. Perhaps there's a tax incentive in Europe that says, we'll deal with more degradation to get more funds. In the U.S., it still qualifies for the full $7,500 tax credit. So maybe that's all they needed and said, we'll make it last long. I think there's probably a way you can tune it or code it to unlock the Euro capacity, similar to what Tom and I have done to RI3s in the past to unlock the larger fuel tank and code other features. I've done that with BMWs in the past. So definitely something to look into. It's a car that would work great for our family and situation, moving dogs around. I really only drive a couple miles a day when I'm here. I've learned this week. We go to dinner, I come back, and then I charge. This is my first time ever living normally. And then you have a gas car to do the airport runs. I don't know. Seems pretty interesting.
So you could probably get like 40 some miles out of that, couldn't you, Tom? With the whole battery?
On the battery? Yeah, absolutely. And when I had it, I wasn't driving far with it. So I had it for like a week. And every time I came home, I'd plug in. And I drove, like, for my normal life, I drove like 75% on battery for that week. So, the fact that it has, the about 30-mile range, you could do a lot of tasks, come home, plug it back in. And a couple hours later, you're back up to charge. Although the one thing I will be critical of the BMW on that, with it's a good size battery pack. They should have included 6.6 kilowatt charging like Chrysler did with the Pacifica. The Pacifica is great. You can recharge that car like in 2 hours. You can drive, exhaust the battery, come home and plug it in a couple hours. It's back to fully charged. The X5 takes a little bit longer to charge because you're stuck slower charging. So, I mean, BMW's corporate company line will be, well, it's not really meant for inter-day charging. You leave in the morning and you drive, and you come home at night and you plug it and you start out with a fresh battery, but which works for a lot of people. But if you want to maximize your driving on electric, it'd be nicer if they, it's not a cheap vehicle. They could have afforded a 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger. It wouldn't cost that much more.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, that's my biggest gripe with the car as well. But then you brought up the Pacifica, which if you drive in the winter, it forces the combustion engine to go on since there's no EV mode. So every plug-in hybrid has a weird intricacy or idiosyncrasy that just makes it odd. And I'm not going to pretend that I like plug-in hybrids. I'm still not convinced yet. I think you go for a very efficient combustion car, fun long-range combustion car, or a battery electric vehicle as your sort of options here. I think it doesn't make sense to include an entire gas car and an entire electric car and then try and make it work. But this is something I'm wanting to spend more time with and play around. And we might spend 3-6 months with a plug-in hybrid here pretty soon to see how much driving we actually do on electric versus combustion. But anyway, that's not the point of this show. The point is we want to talk about towing a dead Tesla. So we were
how's this thing tow? You had a tow strap with you, I guess?
Yeah, but maybe we should talk about why we were towing a dead Tesla.
Sure. Yeah, let's start.
So we went off-roading, Drew, Timon, all of our close friends here locally. Timon just built an off-road rig or is in the process.
Lexus, right?
To take the Lexus off-roading, which was a great day. And Drew came up from Denver and said, I'll charge on the way back down in the Tesla. And he had plenty of juice. He had like 15% at the trailhead. So that was totally fine. But then I guess the road closed on the way to the supercharger. And, we're out here in rural middle of nowhere. And so, he was like out of, just totally out of juice. And so went to the nearest charge point charger. He found that the charge point charger was dead, which I'm hearing a lot of more recently. First of all,
yeah, I heard that the other day too.
Charge point in general, they charge so much money for those dual post units. They're like $6-7 grand for 30 amp connections. Sometimes they're even shared. I would just put in some NEMA 1450s and do 40 amp continuous. But, basically the Tesla was dead, couldn't charge it. He plugged it into a wall outlet. He found some Wi-Fi at a nearby shack, called us just as we were getting into cell service. We turned around, ripped the X5 back, got to try out some of the performance stuff of that plug-in hybrid, full sport mode, everything. It's got 315 millimeter wide rear tires on the M Sports, just crazy. And so we put every inch of those to good use on the way back. We were just full send. It was awesome. And then, Drew had a tow strap with him. So we hooked it up to the back of the X5. On the way over there, I actually drove the X5 in a charging mode. So the car was trying to charge up the electrical system as we were driving.
Right.
I was deploying a lot of full throttle though. So it kind of kept it even. So we got there with about 50% state of charge. And then we towed him in electric mode. We have a whole video on out of spec reviews, but essentially the big story here is about the Tesla, not the BMW. This Tesla was cold at 0%, had the blue snowflake on the dash. It was below freezing outside, very chilly. And, basically I towed him at about probably an average of 25 to 30 miles an hour, but we hit about 50 miles an hour peak allegedly. And,
was it up a hill mostly, I guess?
Rolling hills, some really steep up, really steep down type situation. We're up in the mountains, and
here's some video we're playing here now.
Yeah, just about 3.5 miles into the journey, he charged up 9%. So roughly 30 miles of range for 3 miles of towing.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it was awesome. And so I initially started towing in electric mode in the X5. That's the mode that you're looking at here.
Okay.
And the car would pull him along at 20 to 25 miles an hour. And then the uphills, it really struggled. So I kicked it into hybrid mode, and then it didn't even feel like there was a car behind us. It was pretty cool.
Right on. Yeah. So this video is on out of specs reviews, and it's also there's an article up on Inside AV's Watch Bmw X5 FEV Rescue Stranded Tesla Model 3 by tow charging it. That's pretty great. 10% in like 3 miles.
That's the thing. It's like, even so we've been planning this Alaska trip for quite a while now and couldn't go because of border closings. And now who knows what's going to happen again with the new variant. But at the end of the day, we want to conquer Alaska. We need to do it in a relatively normal period of time. And this tow charging functionality might come in handy throughout our trip. If we can find someone to drag us 5-10 miles here or there, that will give us a significant amount of range. So overall, I am just, I've tow charged before. We've towed our smart car with a Model X and did a whole video on that. So it's nothing new to us. But this was a real world, like our only option scenario, because calling a tow truck could take hours out there, if not longer.
I mean,
and it was cold.
It's a pretty excellent solution. I mean, it's not a solution for everybody because, being towed, something with a tow strap on the road can be a little bit tricky. You have to keep a constant tension on the thing, and
illegal.
It's not for everyone to do. It's like an emergency situation, I guess. But, so what we're talking about that, we should mention that dealing with the EVs with dead batteries. I thought we should also mention that we had a piece on Inside EVs talking about how the Ford F-150 Lightning offers vehicle-to-vehicle charging. That was on a post up this week. So this is accomplished using the Pro Power onboard 240 volt outlet. It looks like you could just use the portable charge cord that comes with the truck, and this is like an adapter, I think, to make it work with the truck's outlet in the back. So if you were charging, say, like a Mustang Mach-E, Ford says that would take about 20 miles in an hour.
So here's the thing about this system. It's nothing new. It's interesting.
Right.
Ford, we've tested the Power Boost Hybrid F-150 that
has
the same exact system as this. It actually didn't work on the truck that we had, but our friends at TFL had the same truck before us and charged an EV from it. So all that Ford is really saying here, it's nothing new. I think it's just, it's a promotional thing.
Sure.
But it's that they now rate the system for constant load.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They approve it for constant load.
Because I was going to ask you guys, like when this feature came out, when we had the specs of the F-150 Lightning, and we did all that, we followed it through. Like, okay, there's a 240 volt outlet in the back, so you can power tools or your house. If there's
it has like 9.6 kilowatts of output power.
And that's total, but the plug itself is only a 30 amp.
Right.
And we're like, okay, so you could charge an EV. And we kind of did that thinking. And I saw these pictures were released by Ford this week. And I'm like, have they done something specifically for EV? Or are they just connecting the dots for other people who don't watch this show? Because we'd mentioned this ages ago.
Right.
But I think it was just that, it's Christmas week. They're putting something out to the press. They're like, hey, remember, you could always charge an EV. But it's still a cool story. Still
Yeah,
cool to
and it
remind.
worked. And
You
so
know.
many people learned about it. So not a bad, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's nothing that we already haven't done before. And it's not new information, I would say.
What we haven't done before that we hopefully will be able to test out soon is Lucid has an EV to EV plug where you plug into the J1772 connector on the Lucid Air.
Right.
And then on the other end, there's another J1772 connector, and you literally plug from your charge port to another EV, and you can charge at up to 19.2 kilowatt. So that's new. You know, this, as Kyle mentioned, this is really isn't anything really big and groundbreaking. That is when you can plug in to your charge port and plug into another EV charge port and go, battery to battery like that. That's new.
Yeah.
It's
That'd be
certainly
great.
a lot cooler than Hyundai making a big deal of their 1.9 kilowatt output
Well,
on their charge port situation.
Well, to be fair, in Europe with the 240,
it's 3.3.
right?
Yeah, 3.6. It starts to get a bit more useful then, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've tried it in Europe. We charged a Taycan with the EV6.
Right on. Yeah.
But I think we only got like 2.4, 2.5 peak because, the Taycan still has to run systems to, cool itself or whatever.
So that's still probably like 20 miles in an hour, and maybe not as
not
thrilling.
at Autobahn speeds. At Autobahn speeds,
Well,
that's like
yeah.
a mile.
Right. So not maybe as fun as tow charging, but at least it's
Here's
effective.
the
And it's easy to do.
If you have an F-150 Lightning, don't bother plugging in another car. Just hook up a tow strap and drag that thing.
Well, possibly. I mean, you have to have somebody in the follow car who knows how to, to feather the brake just nicely to keep that.
No, we didn't do
attention.
anything like that. We just off pedals and you just steer.
Oh, I guess because you got.
I'm not recommending. I can't. Don't sue me if you crack a windshield or crack up your car doing this. But that's the fastest way to get you back on the road.
I was just thinking, actually, it would be kind of easy in electric too, because you got that the regen is keeping the slack from happening, right? When you let out, because you're not.
Yeah, there was no weird thing. It's just the initial get the tension on the first time, and that's it.
Okay,
So
because I was thinking in a typical car. I mean, I've been towed in a particular car with a tow strap, and it's, you always have to keep attention on it, so you're like feathering the brake or whatever, So that's kind of, I never thought about that.
Yeah,
So
they make specific tow straps with some suspension in them now that will save your components. And so we didn't have the right equipment. We didn't use our equipment properly. We just had what we had, a little bit of blue painter's tape to make sure things didn't come undone, and we just dragged it down the road. Worst case that happens is like, oh, he comes unattached. He can still drive.
Right. So the Model 3 was turned on from the minute you left, as in it had enough juice to power itself up. Is that right?
Yeah, so the 12 volt wasn't dead because it was all very recent. This all, the car wasn't sitting dead for more than 45 minutes to an hour, I would say. So, and then Drew also found a wall outlet to plug into, which it was so cold, it wasn't actually really even charging. It was just keeping it alive.
Right.
Cool.
All right. Hey, so let's talk about some.
Tom,
Sorry.
Oh, Tom's on mute.
Sorry. Real quick. Before, when we first started covering this topic, John had asked whose responsibility is it to keep that charge point charging station functional? Like as Kyle said, he pulled up and the charge point charger wasn't working. And that's the problem with charge point. You could never get a consistent network of uptime because ChargePoint just sells the equipment, and then it's the property owner's responsibility to manage it and keep it running. So, you can't complain to ChargePoint if you pull up and a charger isn't working. They'll say, well, we sold them the equipment. It's not our fault. So that's one of the problems that the ChargePoint network has. Is that you could never trust its reliability because every site has a different manager.
Hey, so speaking of charging companies, I thought we should mention too that Electrify America. Some people were coming up who were trying to charge yesterday, and they got charging for free. And so there's a few screen grabs of people, trying Electrify America charges out, and it's like free for the next few days. But that's not system wide, I guess. So Tom, you looked into this and you got a statement from them.
Yeah, they weren't happy that I was messaging them on like the day before Christmas Eve at 10 o'clock at night.
That's their job. What don't they understand? Like with their communications, we're going to ask questions. Why would they get? That's the thing. Whenever I talk to them, They get upset with me. Why? I want to know.
They did respond. I got a statement. Electrify America is offering complimentary charging at select stations that are undergoing upgrades in order to improve our network. We strive to provide the best in customer experience and want to continue to deliver seamless charging, even as we work to enhance our network performance. So, I mean, believe me, I'm not complaining. They gave me a statement that I wanted to. I almost felt a little bad messaging them really late at night the day before Christmas Eve.
Right.
But they did give us an answer. So this isn't system wide.
Right.
There's select stations that they're doing software upgrades. On those stations, you can charge for free.
Right.
A nice little Easter egg to find. So you don't know if it's going to be a free station when you turn up, but if it is getting the upgrade or some maintenance over the holiday period, you turn up to Electrify America and it's on free vend. What a nice little surprise!
It is nice,
for you if you're turning up to charge.
Actually, I think the person's account. I think it was Brendan Flash. I think who we first saw that had that experience. But he has a ID4, I believe, so he has free charging
from someone else because he's out of the country on vacation.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Maybe he responded to that tweet. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Anyway.
Thanks to whoever found it. I've seen it pop up a few times now.
Right. There's a few different people. All right. But let's move on. Tom, you weren't driving this week, but you did have the Tesla wall connector with the J1772 plug. What's the story with that? It was on the Tesla website, and now it's not. What's going on?
Yeah, it's so bizarre. So Tesla announced that they were going to be selling a J1772 wall connector, their wall connector, but with the J1772 connector rather than the Tesla connector. It's the first time that they offered charging equipment that didn't use their proprietary connector. So we quickly grabbed one to do a review. I think they put it up. They put it on the Tesla website on November 1st, and I bought one on November 2nd, and on November 16th it was removed from the website. So I sent them emails saying, hey, what's going on here? Is this just temporary? Are you out of stock? What's going on? I need some clarity. I'd like to order one, and of course it's Tesla, so they're not going to respond to me. They don't respond to anybody. But we did the full review of the charging station. It's going to be up on Inside EVs in a day or so. We did our day or so. We did our full charging station review. It's a good unit. I mean, for $417. For a 40 amp, really well made, with a long cable, nice connector, it's a pretty good deal. But who knows if Tesla's going to bring it back again? It's bizarre that you just can't get answers from Tesla on simple questions like that. Simple response that we're out of stock, we're going to bring it back, or no, we've discontinued it would be all it took. But nope, you can't.
Right.
You can't get that.
Can you call a store? Maybe you can call a store and get that information. I don't know if you can get like a live person.
That I wouldn't even think they even know that connector is available.
Right. I mean, that's what if I have a Tesla question. Sometimes that's what I'll do though. I'll call a bunch of stores till I get an actual human on the line.
Dominic, they don't know anything that's not in the public news. They keep it walled.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they knew about like car inventories and certain distribution centers and things
they
like
can
that.
look up any inventory. Absolutely.
Right. And pricing, they can help because the Tesla pricing is so, changes so often, so dynamic.
JKEV asked, is the power adjustable or is it only 40 amps? Also, is it only hardwired? So it doesn't come with a plug, so it's hardwired, but you could always add a NEMA 1450 dongle on it if you wanted to, just as easy as hardwiring it. And that would still be like to code and everything if you put it on a 50 amp circuit. Yes, the power is adjustable, and it's really cool. It's Tesla has it adjustable in 4 amp increments from 12 amps all the way up to 40 amps. You can set it, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32. That's rare. Usually on these charging stations that have adjustable power, they'll give you a couple of options. They'll say 16 amps, 24 amps, and 40 amps, or, but not every 4 amp increment. So that's interesting. There's a little wheel inside the unit that you adjust to the power delivery that you want.
But Tom, it's only a 40 amp unit because the normal wall connectors like I have here do 80.
Yeah, it's a 40 amp unit.
That seems disappointing, especially with Rivian and Hummer EV and Lucid with 80 amp onboard charging capability coming. Tesla used to have it. I hope they bring it back. I'm a big fan of high power AC charging for hotels, especially with these 200 kilowatt hour battery packs and stuff going into cars.
Right. And 80 amps would give you what, 20 kilowatts?
Yeah,
of power?
just under. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, some older Teslas had that option for 80 amp for 20 kilowatts.
So they basically
just
used
under.
two 40 amp onboard chargers in the original cars. Then they offered a 48 or 72 amp single charger that was interchangeable as like an upcharge. And then they realized everyone thought it gives you faster supercharging, so they just made it slower and saved money.
It's pretty rare. The new Aria is coming with 22 kilowatt AC charging.
But that's for Europe, but we won't get that here.
You won't get that?
No.
22 kilowatt? No, we don't have anything with 22 kilowatt.
Oh, yeah, it's because 240. You're on 240 over there.
Yeah,
240 volts, and we're on 120.
3-phase versus single split.
3-phase.
Oh man, yeah. There's so many AC posts in France, home market, of course, for Renault. So the Zoe has it as well. I've had two Zoes now. They've both got 22 kilowatt AC charging.
You can even get 43 kilowatt AC charging on the early Zoes.
The early Zoes, and it's really handy. It's really handy as well because you're not dealing with all the DC conversion stuff in terms of installing the hardware. So I don't know the cost of putting in a 22 kilowatt 3-phase post, but I guess it's a lot cheaper than a DC equivalent.
That's no different than us just hooking up a normal wall connector here, but you could just get so much more power out of it than we do.
I mean, the Zoe gets noisy on 22. It really starts to you can really hear it charging. It whines. It's so
interesting.
Funny. Yeah. The more power you put into a Zoe, the more it whines. So you charge it at home on 7, it's fine. You charge it out on the road at 22, and it really, like, you can really, because they call it a chameleon charger, they call it, which I think is the drive unit working to charge the battery. I think that's how it works. I've never looked at a Zoe being taken apart, but my God, it's really noisy.
But you're so lucky over there. When we spend time in Europe, of course, and I roll out, like I was in Munich recently. I saw Tom. I plugged in some cars on some 22 kilowatt AC chargers. We had lunch downtown, and they were full. I'm like, oh, that would never happen in the US.
It's pretty crazy. Cool.
Yeah.
So Robert just asked, Tom, can you run a 40 amp charger off a 30 amp portable generator for emergency roadside charging? Not unless you could derate the power draw, because the car and the charger are going to want to try to deliver 40 amps.
But you can go in the car and say charge slower.
Yeah, but not every car allows you to, Kyle.
Sure, but certain cars like a Tesla, you can go single amp increments.
Yeah, if the car allows you to derate the power, or if the charging station allows you inside, with a little dip switch, or some of them have apps, like the NLX Juice Box has an app. You can just derate the power to 30 amps, or actually you'd have to set it to 24 amps if it was a 30 amp generator.
Right.
And so as long as you can derate the power on either the charging station or the car, you should be able to do that. But I've had mixed results with generators. I've used generators plenty of times in the past, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it's something to do with the electricity not being
the floating ground.
Yeah, and so I've had mixed results with generators.
Yeah, so dirty electricity plus floating ground. Some aren't even grounded, even internally properly. You can usually fool them. We've done that at Pikes Peak. We had to run some real sketchy cabling around just to get a car to charge. But it's not the best for your onboard chargers. It kind of stresses your equipment anyway. But they do make pure sine wave inverters inside of generators now. And that's fine. If you can get a pure sine generator that's sort of really properly grounded, as good as you can get on a floating system, then but you're spending big dollars at that point.
Right. Yeah, charging from generators isn't as easy or as straightforward as you'd think. You could, like you said, dirty electricity. It's like I had no idea. Remember, we did an outdoor show one time when we were back in the day, and we plugged into a generator outside, and it fried my friend's Marshall lamp just because it's not great.
The Zoe as well. The Zoe is particularly sensitive to AC charging without a decent ground. They just put some new 22 kilowatt AC posts into the supermarket near me, and they are free vend for people who are using the supermarket. But there's nothing to stop you just going into. It's 3-hour limit on the car park, so there's no one checking that you're shopping. So I thought, great bonus, free charging there where I live, and yeah, my Zoe charged for like 10 minutes and then just freaked out, and the dashboard went red. And I know exactly what that is. It's just because it's a ground problem. And if I were to plug it onto a different unit, it'd be charged absolutely fine. But then sometimes you've got to leave the car for 5 minutes switched off to reset itself. Other times it'll drive away fine. But yeah, they can be pretty sensitive.
That's wild. And then there's other, oddities that like Tesla is really sensitive to, which is like voltage sag. So like if you are charging at 32 amps, then all of a sudden it starts to see the voltage drop under 200 volts, something crazy, it'll back off the current to try and not stress the cabling as much.
Wow.
And yeah, Tom mentioned this type of scenario in one of his charging reviews that looks for max current available for charging. But we don't need to get into it now. Just watch State of Charge. And yeah, pretty wild stuff. Right on.
Hey, so this week, Martin, you weren't driving anything, but I understand you have a little bee in your bonnet about Tesla changing their software for
so like
out of the blue for no reason.
I'd love to hear from any Tesla owners watching this right now. Have you had the holiday update yet? Because what I'd love to know from you guys is passenger play disabled? So an update last December, I think, enabled passenger play. So if you want to play a game in a Tesla and the car is in drive, it'll I don't own a Tesla, but I gather from watching the videos, it says, are you the passenger? And you say yes, and then you can play the game. And
right.
Of course,
on like half the screen, right, on the passenger side.
There's nothing to prove that you're not the driver.
Right.
So, so this was enabled last year. And then earlier this month in December, it was picked up. First week of December, I think, really, when a Tesla owner put a complaint into the NHTSA. Now, I didn't realize, so your regulator can't act unless somebody complains. I mean, they surely can
depends on the agency and different things. Yeah,
but off their own back. But anyway, one Tesla owner complained to the NHTSA that he felt it was distracting to have the car in motion and also video games being played by potentially a driver whilst on autopilot, because there's nothing to stop you just saying, yes, I'm the passenger and playing the game. On Wednesday, they announced a federal inquiry into it. Well, hang on. Maybe the inquiry was happening behind the scenes, but on Wednesday this week, it became public that there was a federal inquiry into why Tesla allow games to be played and while the vehicle is in motion. And then yesterday, Tesla said, we're going to send out an over-the-air update to block it. I do have a bee in my bonnet, because Tesla are under another federal investigation over why their cars keep hitting stationary emergency vehicles. And it just drives me crazy, because they inflict so many problems on themselves. Now, when I talked about this on my podcast and on social media, people said to me, like, you don't understand it. Tesla are pushing the boundaries. Tesla are driving things forward. They're, and I kind of responded to the more reasonable ones to say, but do you want to push the boundaries with safety? Like, distracted driving is a real thing, whether it is people looking at their mobile phone, their kids in the background, just hitting each other and playing up, whatever. You're looking over your shoulder, and all of a sudden, that closing distance is halved. Distracted driving is a real thing, and so it seems that a company currently under investigation, like, there's nobody sensible in the company to say, look, let's just not allow games to be played while the car is moving. But anyway, Tesla fans don't like me saying that, because they say, well, actually, anyone that says anything against Tesla is the devil. And so they don't see it that way, but it just drives me mad. So many self-inflicted problems at that company, because, I don't know, it just seems they need a really good COO, Chief Operating Officer. They need someone under Elon who is a buffer between the driving force that is Elon Musk and what the engineers are tasked to do. And I can imagine that just being a meeting. Like, one of the engineers says out loud in a round table a year ago, oh, we could have a button that says passenger play, and we could play games. And someone, Elon, whoever, goes, yeah, great idea, do it. I just need somebody at that company who is senior enough that if Elon Musk says, you're fired. That's, they don't care. Like they're rich enough, they've made it, whatever, that they don't have to be compliant. But who can stand up to all bits of that company? It drives me absolutely mad. What a reckless thing to do for a company under investigation right now to then enable games to be played. It's crazy. Distracted driving is a real thing. Whether there is a whole argument about people being responsible while they're driving, and I get that. The Tesla fans went mad at me on the internet saying it's people's job not to do drunk driving, not to do distracted driving, and I get that, right? Kind of libertarian side of don't set the rules.
Right.
But equally, because the seatbelt was invented, should it have meant that regulators shouldn't have mandated seatbelts in cars? When ABS was invented, should regulators not have mandated ABS? Now, in 2024, the European Union, so we've got new regulations coming in on next year and then 2024 that will mandate AEB, so automatic emergency braking, lane keep on all new cars being sold, and some other safety features as well. That becomes law, right? And so which side of the argument are you on? Like, should regulators get involved and say, we are going to look out, we are going to protect people, or are you on the side of, don't tell me how to live my life? I don't know. Hey, it's massively contentious. So that's the bee in my bonnet this week, which is like, why do they keep doing this to themselves? And so within 24 hours, over-the-air update, they said they disable. Now, as I have heard today, they don't want to comply with that rule. So what they'll do is they will do something that means somebody's in the passenger seat, like the game can be played if the passenger then moves the seat back and forth.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They won't do it with the weight in the seat, but they'll do it with which again.
It was like if you're the passenger, adjust your seat, and it can tell that then you're the passenger. Which
stop baiting. I think they just want to bait the regulators. They just like this, like Tesla, like this, don't they?
Right. Just pushing the edge,
They love a fight with anyone that wants to, like, not only the fans, but the company. It drives me mad. All they need to do is wait for level 3. Like, as soon as that's achieved. Like, this week, Mercedes-Benz... I'll stop now. The Mercedes-Benz EQS was allowed on several hundred miles of Autobahn this week or last week. It was approved for level 3. So, under 37 miles an hour, I think it is. So, basically, in a traffic jam, the Mercedes-Benz EQS is now approved for level 3, which is eyes-off, hands-off driving.
Right.
So under that speed, you can, on that stretch of road, legally fall asleep, right? You can, maybe not fall asleep, but you can legally hands-off, eyes-off, right?
Right.
All Tesla have to do is wait until FSD is out there, out of beta, and they can do all of this stuff.
Sure.
Anyway,
and they will.
I'd love to know what. I'm sure I've not looked at the comment section while I've been talking to you, but I'm sure people either agree or disagree, and probably more disagree with me. I'm used to it.
That's all right. Hey, so since you mentioned the EQS, let's talk about the EQS, the AMG Eqs 53. I think we've all driven the regular EQS, except maybe Tom. You've driven the fancy concept car. Yeah. But Kyle. So what has AMG done to the EQS to make it better?
Well, it's not worse, which I think is the big thing. But you laugh, but that was my biggest fear, because EQS is supposed to be really comfortable and a cruiser, and just soak up the bumps and be super quiet. And AMG embodies the opposite of all of that. AMG is big V8s, huge tire smoke, big skids, little rowdiness, and I'm like, those two things don't work well together. Now, look, I've driven AMG combustion S classes in the past. And they've all been a little bit odd. You're like in this luxury sedan, but then it's like got this hardcore powertrain and it's growling at you, and you're sideways in like a 9-meter long vehicle. And so you're like, okay, let's see what they do to EQS. And the best thing is that they didn't ruin it. It's just as comfortable as the standard car. The only, look, when I say just as comfortable, it's on 22-inch wheels now, the one I drove. So you do feel smaller bumps a little bit more. But other than that, it soaks up the bumps really well. It's still got huge amounts of rear steering, 9 degrees instead of 10. That's just because there wasn't enough room to make 22-inch wheels pivot in the back 10 degrees. So they max it out. The big deal is in everyday driving, you will not notice a difference between the AMG and the standard car, which I think is the biggest win here. When you put your foot down, yeah, it's quick, but it doesn't encourage you to do that. And I would say wasn't really into the sportiness in the EQS anyway. So I'm not sure the AMG is the one to buy, but and it has the stupid launch control thing, which is like when you do this launch control, it sounds like Star Wars going on in the background, and it grabs the seatbelt and it pulses the motors, and it's like a little bit Watts to Freedom-esque. And not into the fanfare personally. It's just like I want German Hammer to just go and make no drama about it. And yeah, I mean, it sits at high speed really well. There's nothing you can say wrong about it. However, I wouldn't buy it over 450 or 580.
Right.
It had carbon ceramic brakes and the worst brake pedal feel I've ever felt in my life.
So it's not in any better, because that was one of my things with the EQS too. The brakes felt kind of like spongy or not.
They're better than the standard car, but it's not by much. And I was hitting the brakes in neutral, getting heat into the ceramics. Like, I understand when you get ceramic brakes. I've owned cars with them. They have a very, sort of narrow window that they operate at their maximum performance level. So I got the heat into the system. I made sure we were up there and good. And yeah, the braking performance was effective. When you hit the brakes, it stops and gets into ABS pretty quickly and has great stopping power. But you have so much pedal travel to go to get to that point.
Right, that's the thing with it. It does, it works fine, right? But your foot is moving down quite a ways before it's.
Yeah, and then the way it does regen brake blending is quite interesting. Overall, I think the car looks better than the standard car. I love these wheels on it. I would say it looks less terrible, but I think the point of the EQS is not a styling exercise. Obviously, I don't know anyone that thinks it looks beautiful, but I think it's the most amazing electric car to drive, because it is by far the most luxurious experience driving an electric car. Better than Lucid, better than Model S. This thing just wafts down the road. And it's sort of the car I want, my best friend to drive so I can borrow it all the time. And I'd probably drive it more than my own car because it's just so nice to cruise around in.
Yeah, it's nice to be in, for sure. So there's no, so it's got the bigger wheels. There's no change to the shocks or the suspension. I thought it was a little bit firmer or something.
I would say, yeah, when you put it in Sport Plus, it's firmer, but your range of adjustability is increased. So you still have tons of comfort, but it's new, spring rate, new adaptive damper, air, it's all air, of course. You have an entirely new rear subframe. You have rear carrying arms, lower control arms from the AMG GT, I believe. Full aero difference. You can see the diffuser underneath, a little bit larger lip spoiler on the back. The wiring is up. The bus bars are thicker to handle more current. It's a 400-volt system, but it can regen at 300 kilowatts, even through ABS, which is impressive. Has much longer thermal capacity because they upgraded all the pumps in the cooling system. And so also Sport Plus lets everything get really hot. It has direct cooling right to the rotor and then fins off the stator so it can keep the motors cool. I romped on it. I actually wasn't really feeling that great. I was like a little sick, probably from drinking too much. And so had a good time with the engineers the night before. I'm just joking. But just wasn't feeling myself. And so I didn't rip on it too hard, but I did, plenty of launch controls, wide open throttles, sending it through some corners. It's an AMG, had to see if it can do that stuff. And nothing even got out of cold. It was just really well thermally managed. And I'm sure when we can get one to do more testing with, probably my impression, this and Taycan and e-tron GT probably have the best thermal longevity just from this initial test. Hard to say, though. But I'm going to try and get one of these next time I'm in Europe, hopefully soon if the borders don't close, and do some high-speed testing with it.
God, look at that. That is such an amazing-looking car. The hyperscreen is growing on me. By the way, Kyle, would you still have just the single big screen in the middle?
Well, here's the thing. You can't get it unless you get a base rear-wheel drive, which wouldn't work for my lifestyle. So I would be stuck with it, and I don't think it's bad. I'd certainly love the usability. Look, I have Mg Eqs in my Sprinter that I drive often. It's the exact same system for the most part. It's really snappy. What you're looking at here is just the initial startup. But once things are up and running, so fast, no glitches, great route planning. Tells you how many people are plugged into chargers. It has little Easter egg stuff in there, like it was winter time, so it had snowflakes everywhere and things like that. It was pretty interesting. The hyperscreen doesn't bother me. I would still prefer the standard, smaller display.
Right. So the interior, we're looking at the interior now in the video shot, which is up on Inside EVs as well. Mercedes AMG EQS 53 first drive. So is this interior? There's a few tweaks to it.
Not really. Different
Okay.
seats, different steering wheel. You can see the dimpled leather in the steering wheel there. I'm not
Right.
a huge fan of that. It's got the AMG wheel with the individual. You can see there's 2 layers of buttons rather than one single pad.
Right.
It's just the typical AMG accents, metal brushed pedals, or they're not brushed, but metal pedals with rubber in the middle. And for a lot of people, this no AMG enthusiast is going to get into this and say, yes, this is what I want. There's like fake sound that doesn't work, in my opinion, in the car too. And so I wasn't into that. But here's what it is good for. When you are like a businessman, you walk into your Mercedes dealer, you've leased 100 Mercedes in the past for them. You say, just give me the best electric car you have. They're going to get the EQS 53 and still be just as comfortable in the 580.
Right on. Hey, I guess it has special. Hey, Pop.
There's Ellie.
Hey, Ellie.
Hey, Ellie.
You're looking at us. Are you talking about me?
Are you talking about me?
Yeah.
Am I on the internet? Yes, you definitely are.
Hey, on the internet,
like-
no one knows you're a dog. Hey,
you-
so.
Hey.
I was gonna say. Right. So yeah, that comes with special Michelin tires just for the AMG.
Yeah,
as
so
well.
it's an OE tire, which pretty much any large manufacturer makes an OE specific tire for their car. But this is a Michelin Pilot Sport EV tire, which was quite interesting. First time I've ever driven that tire.
It's just specifically designed for the AMG EQS.
Yeah, of course, because it's just an OE tire compound. So like you'll have Michelin Pilot Sport 4Ss, for example.
Right.
And then, AMG will go to them and say, hey, we need the 4S for our E63 AMG wagon, whatever it is. And we want these tire compound treads. And it's still branded as a PS4S, but then it's got a Mercedes little star on it. And then, that's now an OE, an original equipment tire designed by Michelin that can be exclusively and only sold to Mercedes to match their end product.
Right.
But it's still
Cool.
branded Michelin Pilot Sport 4S.
Almost 2,700 kilograms for the EQS AMG. So you want to be careful what tires you put on anyway, because they've got some weight to support.
And you
as
feel
well.
it hustling around. That car does not encourage you to drive quickly on a back road. Look, it's capable. That rear steer does its thing. There's now 3 levels of traction control, and it can go full off, which is great. But that's a big car to hustle around. I
Right.
think the EQE is going to be, a little bit more my speed. I might come around to the AMG thing. I didn't think they needed an AMG version of the EQS. I knew it's been coming. And, this is the 53. I don't think in the US it'll be branded as 53. I think it's just the EQS AMG or the AMG EQS, I think is the better way to put it. But in speaking with some of the engineers, at night when we were hanging out, sounds like, I mentioned, I was like, oh, so the 63 is going to be, the Nürburgring car. That they're like, yep, that's the one. So it sounds like we'll get an even better one later on.
Okay. Right on. All right. So there's not a whole lot of product news this week, but last Saturday, Chinese automaker NIO held its annual NIO Day, and they debuted a new sedan, the ET5. So I believe the last car NIO debuted was the ET7, and that's a large premium sedan. And I think that car should be making its way to buyers early this year or early 2022. So this ET5 is smaller and more affordable, I think, than the ET7. And a lot of people are setting it up as a competitor to Tesla Model 3, which is also sold in China, of course. And it's a big seller there. So one of the headline numbers for this car is the range. Apparently, it will have an optional ultra-long range battery that holds 150 kilowatt hours and is good for, they say, a range of 620 miles. That's 1,000 kilometers. And that's on the China Light Duty Vehicle Test Cycle, the CLTC. I'm not super familiar with this test procedure, but I did find a paper on it last night that purports that it's even more accurate than the WLTP. I think it's got a slower average speed, but they do more accelerations, decelerations. So even if that number is a bit optimistic, that's still a ton of range. And for countries that use the metric system, that 1,000 kilometer number sounds really good. So the base battery is 75 kilowatt hours, so it's comparable to a Model 3 there. And that is supposed to get the car 341 miles of range or 550 kilometers. And that's pretty close to what a Tesla Model 3 long range gets at 334 EPA miles. So the base price of the ET5 is higher than the number 3, the equivalent of about $51,500. So by comparison, the long-range Model 3 is like $46,000 or around there. The ET5 also has a 100 kilowatt hour long-range pack available, and that's the mid-range option, and that has a claimed range of 435 miles, which is again a ton of miles. That's right up there with the Tesla Model S 100. But if you really want to save money up front, you can opt for BaaS, or Battery as a Service. That's you don't pay for the battery up front with your car. You pay it like a monthly fee, and that'll cost you like $150 a month for the 75 kilowatt hour battery, or $232 a month for the 100 kilowatt hour battery. The largest battery doesn't appear to be available as part of that program. So 0 to 60 is 4.3 seconds. 4.3 0 to 60, and that's just a smidge slower than the Tesla Model 3 long range. And it's got it's got 480 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque. And of course, it has a little artificial intelligence character on the dash, the Nomi. That's great. And it also has another interesting feature, a panoramic digital display called Panel Cinema. So it has like augmented and virtual reality features built in. But with a pair of special glasses, the driver can see the equivalent of a 201-inch screen projected about 20 feet in front of you. I'm not exactly sure how that works.
No, Neo, don't do it. No.
Is that like while you're sitting charging somewhere, you can watch like a big screen kind of experience?
I understood it as while you were driving. They look like an expensive pair of Ray-Bans. They're custom designed for this model only. Right. And then when you put them on, they augment reality. I guess a little bit like, how when you use a modern app or a navigation app these days, or even in a car with a head-up display, it'll put the arrow or even augment onto the real world other stuff. No, Neo, just make the car. No. Hey, look, I might try it. It might blow my mind.
It's supposed to go on sale in China next year, but it's going to also be made available in Europe. So yeah, we don't talk about all the Chinese cars that get released, but it's like we said, it's like a light week, and this was there, and NIO is sold
very popular in the U.S. because a lot of people trade their stock here.
Right. And they were supposed to be like in the U.S. by this point, or that was the original plan to be international, be America, Europe, and China. But right now they're still like China and then a little bit of Europe, right?
Yeah,
they're in Norway, and so their battery swap stations are open in Norway, and then in 2022 it's Germany, and then I don't know if you said this, Netherlands, Denmark, other places as well.
Okay, so slowly starting to expand then.
Yeah, absolutely. They got really big plans. It'd be interesting to see outside of China. And Tom can probably talk more to this than I can, because you've spent some time in China. Whether battery swapping will work somewhere like Norway that has, and Kyle, you've just come back from Norway, that has loads of infrastructure, whereas in China, if you're living in a multi-occupancy dwelling and your only opportunity is to go and swap your battery because you can't charge anywhere, battery swapping enormously popular in China. Will it work elsewhere is the big question. Does it need to work elsewhere?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I wondered, I didn't think that model would translate well to areas that already have a robust infrastructure. I don't think it's needed. And also areas, say, like the U.S., where there's just such a vast area to cover, you'd have to have so many of the battery swap stations. So whether it translates well in the other markets, it's still hard to say, but I can tell you in China, it absolutely works. I interviewed a whole bunch of people that were NIO owners, and almost all of them said it is the reason why they got a NIO over a Tesla or another car, because of the battery swap and the fact that they don't live in, almost nobody lives in private homes in China. Everybody lives in these gigantic apartment complexes, and they don't have charging on site, so they rely on public infrastructure, and a robust DC fast charging infrastructure would work, but you're still going to be tethered there for 10, 20 minutes, half an hour if you really want to charge your car up to from 10% to 80% or whatever. for most vehicles at least. And yes, we're getting faster charging now, like with the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and so forth. But the 6-minute battery swap was something. I did it twice, and I was in and out of there in 6 minutes with a fully charged battery. So simple, so easy that I can understand why people liked it.
Right. Yeah, I think the drawback with it is that you need to make more batteries than you have cars, and have extra battery packs available, and that's already like a choke point for car production, is getting enough batteries to supply the cars. If you have to make not double but more batteries to supply the charging stations, that's like more cars that you can't build possibly. That's the only thing I have with it. So,
well, I just emailed NIO yesterday because we're putting together another Euro tour early this year, or early this coming year, I should say. And I want to go film the battery swap station when we're in Norway again.
All right, they have one in Norway.
Yeah, it's up and running in Oslo.
Oh, sweet, right on. All right, hey. So speaking of, I don't know if we want to talk any more about the ET5. It looks great, I thought. By the way.
Looks awesome. You guys know I'm not huge on styling, but this is a great looking car to me, especially in that blue. Really nice.
Yeah, I was watching the NIO Day presentation last night. We just got some scenes that have on our screen here now, and it looks like, I didn't look at it that closely like through the week, and so I was just looking at it last night. And actually, that actually looks pretty good. You can see you got really good forward visibility with that low hood, but the nice curve on the roof with a high. Looks like it's a lift back, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has a hatch.
It's a bit by numbers, but that's no bad thing. JKEV asks, the downside is people will worry their brand new car battery is being swapped with an older one. How do you honor an 8-year, 100,000 mile?
You just swap it again.
Just swap it again.
Right. Well, if you buy it without, if you buy it
not
for
your
battery.
Yeah,
the warranty doesn't apply if you get your battery as a service.
I've had my two Zoes have both come with battery lease, and it's like it takes $8,000 off the price of the car to buy, and it's £50 a month to reno. And I just never ever thought the battery was mine when I've owned those cars. And if the battery goes wrong, I pick up the phone to Mr. Renault and say, "Come and put a new one in my car, please." Not my battery. I think with the battery swapping, it is a different mindset, and ultimately, maybe it's why Tesla tried and it failed with their battery swaps. And again, I've heard that they only did that for other reasons. I've been told stories over the years about why they build that battery swap station. But or it could be cultural, as in people just want to own the car on their driveway and they want to own 100% of it. I don't have a problem with a massive discount off the sticker price of the car. And every time I put a battery in a battery swap station, I know that it's probably been charged overnight on slow AC charging. It's in top nick. If there's any problems with a battery, it gets taken out of commission, goes back, it gets fixed by NIO, either new modules or replacement is done. It goes back into the pool. So I know the battery in my car is always tip-top condition. I don't worry about that so much, but yeah, maybe it's a mindset thing.
Right on.
It is a mindset thing. And let me explain. You don't need to have battery as a service to use NIO battery swap stations.
Okay.
There's two different things. Battery as a service, you lease the battery. You don't own it. And you can then in the future upgrade. Like let's say in 3 or 4 years, NIO comes out with a better battery for that car. It's bigger. It goes further. You can then say, okay, I want this new 150 kilowatt hour battery, and then just continue to lease that at I would imagine it's going to be a slightly higher rate. But all NIO vehicles come with free unlimited battery swap. You don't need to have battery as a service to use NIO battery swap stations. Every NIO comes with it free, unlimited for the life of the vehicle.
Cool. All right. So let's want to talk about something else for a sec. We want to keep the show a bit short today, I think, because it's like Christmas Eve, right? So the BMW iX apparently gets 324 miles of EPA range, and it's with the smallest tires. That's 20-inch wheels. And Tom, you drove the BMW iX. That's like the big kind of chunky SUV, right?
Yeah, I was super impressed with the iX. I was really impressed with both BMWs, the i4 and the iX. Every now and then you just kind of get surprised. I reflected upon this after it was over and said, well, why why was I surprised? Why didn't I expect, BMW to put forth good EVs? And maybe it was because they really haven't done a pure EV since the i3 came out back in 2013.
Right.
And I didn't know what to expect. But they both came up on me and surprised me. And I did the drive for the iX xDrive 50 and the i4 M50. And I'm telling you, both of those vehicles were absolutely some of the nicest electric vehicles that I've driven. Two of the nicest electric vehicles I've driven this year. I've said this before in the podcast. If you're considering getting a Tesla Model X, don't buy it until you drive the iX, the BMW iX. I know it looks funky. I'm pointing out to that front plastic is self-healing. If you get a scratch in the front, you could take a rock or even a knife and scar it in the front. Within 24 hours, you go back and look at it, and it's all nice and smooth. The plastic is self-healing. It's kind of wild. But I know it looks funky. It looks, as Dominic said, chunky, and the front kind of looks like buck beaver teeth a little bit. But I've never really been too concerned with the exterior appearance of a car, to be honest with you. I don't want a car to be ugly, but I put a lot more emphasis on the interior because that's where I spend all my time.
Right.
And both the vehicles, the i4 and the iX, have super comfortable, well laid out, well thought out interiors where everything's right where you need it. Extremely comfortable, really cool textiles that they use, textures and different materials, recyclable materials. And both of the vehicles I was really uber impressed with. And I tell you, as I said earlier, if you're thinking about getting a Tesla Model X, you really should drive the iX first because I think the driving experience will win you over.
Right, and it's at $84,000, so it's not cheap.
Hey, Dominic, there's a Model X.
Right? Right? Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's just for the general buyer. I mean, that's out of my league. But
hey, Dominic, about the range figures, really quick. Did you notice that the 21s have less range than the 22s?
Right. So the 20-inch wheels, 324 miles. According to our post here, the 21-inch wheels are 305 miles. But if you go up to 22-inch wheels, it's 315. I'm not sure how that works. You get 10 more miles somehow. I'm not exactly sure how that works. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's got to be aero tire selection. Perhaps the 21s are the sporty options, so they're a bit wider. It's hard to say. But yeah, that's the Euro trailer hitch coming out there. Those are the best. We don't get those in the US.
Well, that's kind of neat. What is it?
Yeah, that's every European car pretty much has that with the trailer hitch.
Automatic, fantastic.
But we don't get it.
Electric included.
I've never seen that before. So
even E-Class wagons have it there. It's pretty funny.
So if you're not watching this on YouTube or Twitch, what just happened, they were looking at a shot of the rear of the car and the bumper, the tow hitch is like stowed away up inside the back of the car, and it, like electronically, I guess, like swings down and gets into place so you can hook up a trailer to it. That's interesting. I've never seen that.
I'd forgotten this is the car that you can't open up the front. Entirely sealed. Cannot get in there.
Entirely sealed. That was something that was, but it's not becoming completely unusual anymore. There's other vehicles coming out that are going to have that same feature, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, you can't open the hood. You can't even change your own 12-volt battery. That's an issue. That's a problem.
So they gave you a cutaway of it to show you what's under there.
Right. Lots of stuff.
But
hoses and pipes and wires.
Can't actually lift it. I mean, you don't really need to, unless, like Tom says, your 12-volt goes, in which case it's on the back of a low loader.
Well, there's got to be a way. Someone will come up with a user manual. There's gonna be a way to open that thing up, just like i8. Like, remember the i8? BMW's done this in the past. No user serviceable items, but then if you had two people and some tools, you could get the thing off.
Because there's the 12-volt.
I mean, I'm sure you can get the service tool that service departments have one way or the other to unlock it and pop the hood open. But to that point, why do you need to? We don't work on our cars anymore. These aren't like the cars of the 70s or even the 80s where you did work under the hood. There's nothing to do with an electric car other than change the 12-volt.
Which you can see on screen there. So it's accessible. It's not like it's buried somewhere. So I don't know. We'll wait and see.
So we also have the EPA rating for the i4. That's the electric Grand Coupe. So in the press release,
It's actually not the Grand Coupe. That's the 4-door version. Is it a 4-door version, Tom?
Yep.
Or is it
Yes.
2-door? Oh, that's right. This is the coolest thing. Tom, before we get into the EPA range, Tom, can you just tell us really quick, because it's been a little while, what the M50 was like to drive, your little elevator pitch on it?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, I was impressed with the M50. I thought it drove great, but I drove it back to back with the iX, and I was more impressed with the iX only because I didn't expect it to be such a good driving experience with this big bloated SUV. That, as
Right.
Dominic called it, chunky. Appropriately, it looks chunky. That's a great term for it. And I drove it right after the iX, and I was almost disappointed, even though it's bad to say because I thought it had a great driving experience. You see my review on Inside EVs, and I see it on the top. I write surprisingly good because I wasn't expecting this to do as well because it doesn't have a bespoke chassis.
Right.
BMW is sharing this chassis with the combustion versions of the 4 Series, the 4 Series Grand Coupe, and I really was struggling to get how the driving dynamics would really live up to a BMW or an M BMW, but
It's a bit heavy, right?
The driving we did, I didn't have it on a track. And if you remember, Kyle, right when we were done with this, the first thing I said was, Kyle, I can't wait till you get this on the track, and you could really tell me how this thing does on a track, because we were on roads, and there's only so much you could push it. I'm in a foreign country, I'm not going to go nuts with it, but I thought the driving experience was fantastic. To me, it was like the first sports sedan that I would say, electric sports sedan that I would say people legitimately should cross shop this with Teslas, and no, it's not a Tesla killer, but it is absolutely a Tesla competitor. And it's kind of in between the 3 and the S, and I thought the driving dynamics were great. I thought the interior was beautiful, well laid out, super comfortable, much nicer than, say, the inside of a Tesla. And I'm a Tesla owner. I like Teslas, nothing against them, but it's much more upscale, a lot more premium when you sit inside it than you get with Tesla vehicles. And I just thought it drove great.
And your tester there has a nice matte finish of paint on it. It looks good. So the EP range on the E40 eDrive 40, that's the rear-wheel drive version, it gets 301 miles with the 18-inch wheels and 282 miles with the 19-inch wheels. But the M2 BMW i4 M50, that's the all-wheel drive version, gets 270 miles with the 19-inch wheels, but only 227 miles with the 20-inch wheels. So that's a bit low there. And so that car also has like a 83.9 kilowatt hour battery, which is pretty big, and 81.5 kilowatt hours usable, which is it's a pretty small margin there in the usable battery, right?
I talked to BMW about this. I asked the engineers when we were in the workshop, and they put those numbers up, and I was like, wow, that's like the smallest buffer that I've ever seen a company announce. Now, we know Tesla has small buffers, but they don't tell us exactly what their buffers are, and a lot of companies don't tell you usable and total capacity. So good on BMW for giving us all that information and saying, look, there's a total pack, this is the usable pack. And I asked them, I said, that's incredibly small. I mean, percentage-wise, it's tiny. And they said, we've done extensive research. We've got, we've been selling electric vehicles now for 10 years, and we have so many of them on the road. We've done our research. This works. It's not going to, bring on early degradation. But they said, like pretty much all the other electric vehicle companies, we don't recommend you charge it to 100% on a daily basis.
Right.
If you charge to 80, 85%, 90% on a daily basis, you're not going to have any problems. You could bump it up to 100% when you're going on a road trip, but you wouldn't want to charge it to 100% every day.
So Bobby Faison says in the comments, I'm really on the fence if I want to buy that i4 or a Model 3 next summer. I would say the tax credits might be a deciding factor. I would say drive them both. I mean, really, that's when you buy an Indy car, get in there and drive it and just see if you like it. Maybe it has some oddity that you wouldn't realize until you got in it and actually experienced it. So that's
Absolutely.
always like a huge thing, you know.
Drive them both. Like, all of us here and other journalists, we try to explain what our feelings and our interpretations of the driving experience is when we test drive these cars. But ultimately, you need to make that decision yourself. You need to get in behind the wheels of this car, in these vehicles, drive them and see what you like the most. Then obviously listen to what we have to say about maybe some of the intricacies, but don't let our recommendations be your final recommendation. You have to make that decision. Yeah. Only you know what's the best vehicle for you. But I can tell you, walking away from driving the i4, I think it's a legitimate Tesla competitor for the first sports sedan that I've driven that really is, outside of maybe the Xpeng P7 that I drove for a while, but that's not available in the US yet.
Right on. Hey, so this is Christmas Eve, and the last show of the year. Oh, I guess we're doing the New Year's Eve show, but we're going to talk about the cars coming. Pretty much next week's show is going to be talking about all the the best electric cars coming next year, and there's like at least 15. Maybe we'll talk about a little fewer, but that's something to look forward next week. But I wanted, before we go this week, I wanted to ask what your favorite EV was this year, or maybe EV event, because I know like Tom's been on a bunch of great drives and has some incredible cars, and of course you have too, Kyle, and even Martin has had a few cars. So I don't know. Let's start with Tom. You want to talk about what did you drive this year that you really, really liked?
Yeah, so Dom mentioned it. Like, I've been covering electric vehicles now for 10 years, and every year it's usually like there's that one EV that I've been waiting for that I get to drive, and I'm like, the kid on Christmas morning. This year, it's like Christmas every day. It's been nuts. I mean, I drove the Bolt EUV. Okay, it's not earth groundbreaking, but the Bolt EUV, the BMW i4, the BMW iX. I drove in the Ford F-150 Lightning. Darren Palmer drove me. I drove the Hummer EV. I drove the Rivian R1T. I drove the Lucid Air. It's like, and the hits keep coming. I don't know where to begin.
Did you drive Plaid?
What's that?
Did you drive Plaid this year?
Oh, yeah, the Tesla Model S Plaid. It's like, any one of those would have been the highlight of my year. Well, maybe not the Bolt EUV, but any one of those would have been the highlight of my year in past years. And that's great because this is it now. We're at that point where now every year we're just going to get dozens of new EV introductions that are fantastic. I also didn't drive, but I did a walk around video of the Ioniq 5, the Cadillac Lyriq. I mean, they're just coming. And if I were to sum up this year, as you guys probably know, where I'm coming at. One of the things I've been saying for years is trucks. EVs haven't made it in America until we have electric pickup trucks. And I drove in 3 of them this year, in the last couple of months. So we're on our way here to really mass electric vehicle adoption. It's going to take a little while. They're not going to work for everybody in the beginning, but we're going to get 3, maybe 4. I mean, what do you guys think about the Cybertruck? Is that coming in 2022?
I'm on the fence. I think Kyle has more confidence in that than I do, actually.
3, maybe 4 trucks, electric pickup trucks in 2022 in the U.S., and that's kind of like a watershed moment in my opinion. So that's really the big news for me. But if I was to pick one driving experience that stands out, it's the Rivian R1T. 60 miles off road, up to 13,000 feet in the Colorado Rockies. It was Rivian did a great job planning that thing out. We had all our meals from the camp kitchen. We're sitting around campfires and driving through streams and over boulders. That was a really, really amazing first drive event.
That sounds pretty special. Martin, you've had a couple cars this year. You've had the NIO EV.
Yeah, I love driving that. The Kona was great for 3 months. I loved having the ID3 for 2 months. Done some long-term tests this year. I was gonna say, can I pick the Rivian even though I've not driven it? Just because it's important in the world of automotive that we have electric trucks. Not here, but where you are. But I won't. As I was gonna say, can I have the F-150 Lightning? But it's not on sale. It's not even in production. So I'm gonna go Ioniq 5 and I drove that this year. Starts at 37,000 for the rear wheel drive, 37,000 pounds sterling, about what, 31, 32 US with the tax credit. If that's something like that.
39.7 pre-destination pre-tax credit.
Right. So low
Wow.
30s by the time, if that's, if you are liable for your full 7.5 grand. But look, I'm going for that because this is next generation technology for family man money. It is, 800 volt system, which Taycan and e-tron GT owners are enjoying for 100 grand plus. It's insanely fast charging. And for so long, those of us that have been fans of electric vehicles for a long time, and I've not been making content about electric vehicles for as long as Tom and Dom, for instance, you guys have waited, more than a decade for these kind of cars to arrive. But you plug in 15, 20 minutes later, you're back on the road for 3 more hours. The Ioniq 5 Kia EV6 arriving with that level of technology for that amount of money, not saying 35 grand, 40 grand is cheap, but it's kind of family lease money. That's my car of the year this year, because I think that raised the bar and a lot gets compared to it. And there's good stuff in that car. Like, the interior is insanely huge. It's got the cameras on the wing mirrors, the blind spot cameras that Tesla are introducing with their holiday update as well. It was vehicle to load. It came to the market a year ago here with a lot of stuff that nobody else was doing. But it's the price and the tech. I'll choose that.
Yeah, the Ioniq 5 is really interesting. I was thinking it was going to be like on our list of new cars to look forward to for next year, but it's already being delivered finally in the US.
Yeah, it's out in the US.
Maybe we could put the EV6 on the list because I don't think that's making deliveries quite yet. But Ioniq 5, Kyle, you had an enthusiastic review of that car, but I was looking at the Motor One review yesterday, and I think Beverly Braga wrote that up for us. And she wasn't quite as enthusiastic as you were. I'm not sure if I think you probably drove it harder. So it had a better feel of dynamics.
It's not really like a performance car. It's not meant to be driven hard. So,
right.
That's fine if she didn't. But that's why there's multiple journalists, different opinions. I come from the really nerdy EV side. Most journalists don't understand how to even charge a car, so we're sort of in this middle ground. And so, yeah, I as an electric car for our electric enthusiast audience, it's great. But yeah, my dad's buying one, so I'm going to steal it from him for a month or two and bring it out here, and it'll be an SEL. No limiteds coming into the U.S., it sounds like, just SEL. He's got it at sticker, no reservation, plenty available, by the way. Like every dealer he's called has Ioniq 5s coming in at sticker.
Really?
So, yeah, no issue at all.
I mean, I've heard, yes, there's been some reports of people
go somewhere
asking.
Else. Yeah,
right.
See, someone says 7,500 over. Go somewhere else and drive it back.
Pick up the phone, just call around, get a price.
It only costs $1,500 to ship a car across the country. Go buy it in Maryland or something, and then send it on a truck over. You'd be so dumb to pay over sticker for a mass production car.
Right, especially if you have like servicing in your state. So maybe the dealer in your state's charging extra, but you can still have it serviced there, regularly. You don't have to, worry about that part. If you
I would say that's just where the adventure starts. Is if it breaks down, then that's Hyundai's problem. And
right. See, the thing with Hyundai is they're only
give it back when it's done.
They're only delivering cars in ZEV states for a while. So there's like a dozen or so states that have them. Like, so someone in Florida wanted to buy a e-Niro, they had to drive to Maryland and buy one there. So if something happens, the dealer here might not be able to deal with it properly. I don't know. That's
part of the adventure. Look, it's early days, but I will say Alyssa's brother's buying Ioniq 5. He lives in Minot, North Dakota. And we're going to try and arrange his delivery and my dad's at the same time so we can film a little video because they're getting them from the same dealer. So that'll be quite interesting.
Right on. So what other cars did you find interesting this year? What was your favorite experience?
Experience and cars are different. I would say experiences are very localized to me. Everyone will have a different experience. So I'll at least talk about the cars. Yeah. And so there's 3. There's Taycan GTS Sport Turismo, which I have not driven. I've driven every version of Taycan other than the one that I want. So, but one of our guys, Jordan, for Out of Spec, drove it, wrote a great first drive article, and really enjoyed reading his piece on that. He said it was absolutely amazing. I have no doubt. I can imagine what it drives like. That to me.
That's on Swerve Auto?
It's on swerveautos.com.
Okay.
And that to me is just like the perfect car. I think all around dream car. But then there's two others that were really highlights. I thought Ioniq 5 really is the best, everyday car. ID4 we drove last year, so that was that car, that halo car towards the end of the year. Ioniq 5 coming in now. Almost no reason to buy ID4 over Ioniq 5 in my opinion, other than availability and maybe price. But the everyday stuff they can.
Some people don't like the looks of the Ioniq.
Then buy an
5.
EV6 or a GV60. I don't know, but it's the charging stuff. I think this looks amazing. But yeah, that's ID4 is still a great car. It doesn't get me wrong. Everything I've said about ID4 doesn't change because Ioniq 5 is out. It's just this is the next level. And, the big question is, can Hyundai sell it? Can they explain the car? Can they market the car? Can the dealers handle the sales process?
Can they make enough of them? That's my question.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of available inventories, but it sounds like people are just waiting on these silly reservation lists, which you should absolutely never do if cars are going to a dealer ship situation. You just walk in and buy a canceled one. Or, and the crazy thing is they're being delivered to dealers, and dealers have no idea what to do with reservations. They're just selling them to people walking in. So it's a disaster. So that's my biggest issue with this car.
Speaking of adventures, I was just going to say, Scott Berger here says, do not buy out of state where you can't get service. Even EVs have problems. My Niro had a failed motor, and Kia refused to fix it for months and months. That was the thing with the Niro, e-Niros, and the Kona EVs. A lot of owners did have some, motor or transaxle issues. They ended up replacing the motors.
On those cars.
Sorry.
There were major issues. My uncle's limiting his. I think it's really bad. His Kona EV.
Right. So yeah, we have a big ownership community on the EV Inside EVs forum, and you can find a lot of info about that if you're thinking about buying one, or if you have one and you have like a clicking sound when you're driving, it develops. That's something to look out for. But they do make this is a different model number of motor that the people haven't had issues with. So they did make improvements, and hopefully the new ones. 2022 is restyled. It's a new looking.
In my opinion, most people live near enough to a ZEV state that are watching this show that could throw it on the back of a U-Haul trailer and bring it up just to drive their car, whatever. It's not this is not something to make or break a buying decision off of. In my opinion, some people aren't as adventurous. But I would say, my three cars, Taycan Sport Turismo, Ioniq 5, and R1T. So
R1T over the Hummer? You know
the Hummer does nothing for me. It's all R1T.
Okay.
Yeah, because the Hummer is just... Again, I keep saying it. You're like CrossFitter in Miami. The Rivian's I'm actually going to see these out on the trails here in Colorado. People working them, using them. I don't think we'll see nearly as many Hummers going off-road on adventures as we do these.
Right. F-150 Lightning to the R1T?
I got to ride in the Lightning, but to me, I don't... Look, I think it's awesome, but if I wanted a truck to work, I don't think I would buy an electric truck.
Okay.
I'd want a big... 350 diesel that could tow a big ass car trailer and go across the country without thinking about it.
Right.
Electric trucks still can't work the way I need them to.
Right. I mean, for millions of people, for millions of people, they should work just fine. But if you're towing long distances, it might be an issue with our infrastructure the way it is.
Even if you tow long distances every 6 months, how much would it suck to say, "Oh, my truck can't do it. Let me go rent something." You buy a truck to do everything you can do with it. And that's the point right now. I don't think EV trucks are there. I think Rivian took the right approach, not making it a work truck, making it an adventure lifestyle vehicle for millennials like myself that buy into the camp kitchen and all the cool stuff. And I think that's the move, but it's not a work vehicle.
Right. I mean, Ford has a lot of orders for their F-150 Lightning. And so, I mean, it works for some people, so that's good. I don't know. As many pickups as we can replace, the better, I think.
Well, here's the thing. There's enough use cases for every electric truck that could ever possibly be made in the next 5 years, to be sold. But I still think, out here in the middle of basically Wyoming, where I live, northern Colorado, and next town down from Wyoming, there's no chargers and big speeds, big winds, big weather, and big heavy loads we got to pull.
Right. All right. So I don't know.
Hang on. What's yours? You can't get away with this and not tell us yours.
I mean, I didn't drive a whole ton of things, but my favorite thing was going to Kyle's event last couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, and where I got to drive Volvo XC40 Recharge. Arcimoto was there. What was else? There was so many cars. I didn't drive the ID4 all-wheel drive that time. got to sit in I got to drive a Tesla Model S refresh, which I really liked. I really liked the way the power delivery on
break
that.
itself after you got out of it.
The only thing I didn't like. The only thing I didn't
no.
like about it is getting in and out of the Model S. That's something people don't really talk about, but like just getting in and out of the Model S is like it's one of the most awkward freaking cars.
Really? I lived with one. I never had an issue.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. Okay. Maybe
Well, we knew that from the beginning.
Right. But yeah. What else was there, Kyle? My mind's
We had
blanking.
e-tron GT. We had two Mach-E GTs. Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, right, the Mustang Mach-E. Yeah, that's a great car. The GT. Oh yeah, that was sweet. And the Polestar 2, I didn't drive that, but it was like great to look at and sit in, and it's got that same drivetrain. The XC40 drivetrain felt really great. So anyway, that was my best EV event because I got to drive, a whole bunch of things, and I got to hang out with Kyle and Timon and the other guys from out of Spec and some other YouTubers. Lacey, Miss Go Electric was there. And that was great. Yeah, that was a good time. Have to do that again.
Yeah, we'll see if we do it again or not. We'll play around with that for next year.
Yeah, EV Media Summit. Yeah, that's good. All right, so I think that should bring us to the end of our show. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on the Inside EV's forum podcast thread or on our YouTube or Twitch comment sections. If you like the show, please give us a thumbs up if you're watching us on YouTube. And don't forget, you can find and follow our panelists on Twitter. Follow Tom Malogney at TomLog, that's with 2 M's. Martin Lee is at EV News Daily. Kyle Connor is at It's Kyle Connor. And I'm at Dominic_Y. Click subscribe and please tap that bell icon for notifications. And we'll see you all again next week. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. This holiday season, we are delighted to wish you and your family all the very best with our podcast sponsor and partner, Electrify America. What a year of milestones for Electrify America. On average, they've opened 4 charging stations per week since May 2018. They started construction on their 800th charging station this year, expanded across 46 states and Washington, D.C. They installed battery storage systems at over 150 DC charging stations. And earlier this year, Electrify America announced its Boost plan to double its current EV charging network, with plans to install 1,800 stations and 10,000 individual chargers by 2025. And if you're on the road this holiday season and need to charge your EV, well, the Electrify America mobile app offers electric vehicle drivers a streamlined charging experience, whether you tap to pay at the NFC reader or swipe to start at the station. So, download it now if you haven't already. Well, you can find out more about their network at electrifyamerica.com.